Hello and welcome to the Play Creators Conference. Thank you for joining me. I'm Billy Langsworthy from Mojo Nation, and this is the Inside the Studio Seven Towns panel, where we're going to be diving into this very prestigious long-running invention studio, how it came to be, and diving into its approach to invention and design. I'm delighted to be joined by Elizabeth Moody, SVP of Business Development at Seven Towns, Jacques Priestner, Senior Product Designer and Inventor at Seven Towns, and Tom Moore, Senior VP of Creative at Seven Towns. Thank you guys for taking time out to join me today.
Our pleasure, Billy.
Thank you for having us.
Good stuff. So before we dive into all things Seven Towns, I thought it'd be good to find out a bit more about your own backstories, how you came to be with the company and stuff like that. So Tom, if we kick off with you, how did you find your way into the world of toys and with Seven Towns?
Well, I guess as a kid, I always enjoyed toys, and I kind of had an artistic bent. I always did best at art in school. And so I ended up doing a degree in industrial design. And when I finished that course, I started looking for a job. I had a kid at the time, so it was pretty important that I found one quickly. And I actually blundered into the wrong muse when looking for a job. And I came into Lambton Place, which is where Seven Towns are, and looked through the window at all these toys, thinking, wow, this looks great, ray guns and spaceships and things. And they saw me looking through the window and came out and said, wondering whether I was some industrial spy or something. They said, no, I'm just looking for a job. And I started the next day. That was
that's amazing.
7 years ago.
That's amazing. So genuinely, it was just that it was another building on that row, and
that's right. I kind of happened upon it, just pure chance.
Right. What was the original intent? Was there somewhere else down that?
There was
you have to walk past the other.
Exactly. I got my directions wrong and
wow.
Ended up at Seven Towns.
There we go. You'll have floods of people at your window now, just thinking, well, that's how their recruitment goes. I've just got to peer in.
I think just turning up is a good way of going about it.
Here's the green light. We'll put your address up at the end of the video. And Lizzie, in terms of your background, how did you find yourself into toys and with Seven Towns? Was it peering through a window? Did that work for you?
It wasn't quite peering through a window, no. I grew up in the toy industry. So my dad, Mike Moody, has been in the toy industry most of his career. So I grew up, running the halls of Tyco Toys and Matchbox, Action GT, and then kind of fell into working for Seven Towns, almost not quite as dramatic as this. I came here after I finished my master's in childcare and development, and started just helping out with some filing for a few weeks whilst I was looking for a job, and genuinely forgot to leave. I mean, it's the way it happens. I just stayed and progressed through. It's been great. I absolutely love it, but it was quite accidental as well. Just like Tom.
Amazing. And Jack, please tell me there's someone on the call who intended to apply for a job at Seven. What was your route in? Was there
well, it all came about from basically I was at the New Designers originally, and I started off at Tomy. So I was with Tomy with Pete Kelland and Tom Yamazaki. But unfortunately, after 6 months, I was made redundant. But Pete, being a great guy, put me in touch with Steve here, and then few weeks later, I had the job at Seven Towns, and I've not left since. So,
yeah. There's a
theme at Nuremberg Toy Fair.
Yeah. I remember I was showing Tom and the team Greedy Granny at the time, because I worked in it at Tomy, and it just happened that it was Seven Towns Invention. So
there we go.
It was a circle in the end.
That's it. And once you're in, you're in. It's a bit like the Hotel California of the toy invention.
Exactly. Yeah.
There we go. So let's look at Seven Towns, as an invention studio, because it's got a tremendous amount of history. Been going for a very long time. So for anyone that isn't aware of sort of the origins, how this whole thing started up, who can talk us through the sort of the early days and where this came from? Tom.
I suppose I'm the longest serving employee here, so I should try have a go at that. Seven Towns was founded in 1963 by Tom Kramer, who's a bit of a legend in the industry. I'm told initially he was the sole inventor. I'm told his first product was called Wordmaster, some kind of interlocking tiles thing that spells words for children. Anyway, that gave him the idea to invent children's games more seriously. and he started taking ideas to Nuremberg Toy Fair and produced several games early on for a company called Condor, including 7 League Boots, which I remember because that's one that I played with when I was a kid. His games often involved European folklore and history, which was obviously dear to his heart. Other early successes that he had around then were games like Texas, Armada, Game of the Road, a Great Game of Britain, and the London Game, the last 2 of which are still in production with John Adams. And then in 1979, it was at Nuremberg that Tom met Erno Rubik, and that's where a really big part of toy history was made.
Yeah.
The cube was just a small thing in one of those backwater aisles at Toy Fair, in the vastness of Nuremberg Toy Fair. But he signed it up from Erno Rubik, and the rest is history. That gave us the financial stability at Seven Towns that can be necessary to survive the unpredictability of that is inherent in the nature of toy invention, the hit or miss nature.
Yeah.
Sometimes, no matter how good an idea, it just doesn't hit for some reason. Very hard to predict. So you have ups and downs. We've had a heck of a lot of ups and not many downs, thankfully. So, but we all know how it works. I suppose after that, he started assembling employees around himself. The first, I believe, was Chrissy Trussell, who was a kind of organizer and secretary, I think. I hope she doesn't mind me calling her that. She was became a really important part of Seven Towns as chiefly an organizer. Then the second employee was Chris Brewer, who was an extraordinarily talented engineer and mechanism designer. And then shortly after him came John Wallace in 1986, who is legendary at Seven Towns for his engineering, artistic and mech design skills. That was some team that he assembled there. And I joined in 94, and I'm very grateful that I overlapped for such a long time with those employees, because I learned a heck of a lot from them. They were very exciting times, and they still are. And so with those new skills that came along, we started getting involved in slightly different, the products that we made slightly morphed, more plastic became involved, more engineering, more mech, because we had such talented mech designers, more mechanism-based toys with plastic parts or explosive televisable payoffs such as Donutters or Lottie Karate, Pig Goes Pop. It's too many to mention that we've made. We also had success in toys, Boglins, Sectors, so many. But as the team grew, the projects changed. For instance, when we got a sculptor, Bruce Atley, who later on became a kind of cult pop art sculptor known as Dr. A. He was a brilliant sculptor. So at that time, we started to do a lot sculpting, a lot of lines of collectibles. And so it slowly grew. After that, we got Toby Kinsey, who was brilliant with the electronics, just gave us another string to our bow, and also a fabulous model maker and mech expert. And then Gary Piper came along, who helped us with our Photoshop abilities and suddenly brought us into that it was still the 20th century, but brought us up to date with our computer skills, and as well as being fantastically inventive. So we've slowly grown, bringing more skills and more strings to our bow as time has gone on. I think that's how Seven Towns has emerged.
Yeah, amazing. That's great.
That Seven Towns have been around for a while when the employees played with them as their toys as a kid. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That is the clue.
Yeah.
I'm interested there, before we dive into sort of your approach to design and stuff like that, Tom, one thing I want to look at, like you say, Tom is a sort of incredible figure in the industry, a legendary figure. for anyone that sort of doesn't know about him or never met him or things like that, what why do you think he has got such a sort of special reputation, and what was it about maybe his personality that ensured that, like you say, he found these great people and that Seven Towns was born on such a great foundation?
Well, he had a very tragic start. I don't know if that had something to do with it, but it may well have given him a strength and purpose in life. He survived Bergen-Belsen during the Second World War and was liberated in 1945 by the Allied forces. After that, he studied in Edinburgh, and then I think he went to Switzerland, but he lived in the UK from the 1960s onwards. And he was a very powerful character, just hugely enigmatic, charismatic character, and very sure of himself and strong, which may have given him a slightly scary appearance. He certainly scared me when I first joined Seven Towns. But yeah, that's Tom, and he wasn't afraid to take a risk, and that will certainly have been an attribute that helped him when he met Erno Rubik with what was at the time a puzzle, the Rubik's Cube, that wasn't being taken by big companies because it was just considered too hard to solve. So in that sense, it was a bit of a mold breaking toy. Yeah, so just, I think that's Tom in a nutshell, just a very passionate and enigmatic, strong character.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And then Lizzie, if we look at the actual, the team now and the approach and stuff like that, how would you sum up sort of that creative process with you and the team? How do you approach coming up with new ideas, working together? What would you say is the sort of secret sauce at Seven Towns in terms of how you invent stuff?
I mean, I think if there was a genuine secret sauce, then we'd invent every product that was in every toy company. There's no secret sauce as such. What there is the ability for freedom, for creativity. So we really encourage the team to create things that they find is fun to create, that they would enjoy playing with. We look at wish lists, we read them, we ask, we see what the companies want and things like that. But at the end of the day, we create cool product, and we really try to stick on that side rather than inventing necessarily for each individual company. It works for some companies really, really well. It's just for us, we like to create cool stuff that we just like. And also we operate a very free policy. So the design team can work on what they want to. They present it back to us. We'll all have feedback on it. We'll discuss items. They might go away and work some more on it. But it's completely free to do what they want to do, which I think is the most important thing. Because if you box a creative into a small area, then they're not able to dream. They're not able to use their amazing creativity. They're stuck. Whereas here we try to let everybody just branch into their own things and explore different ways of doing stuff and different avenues to look at things.
Yeah, it's quite an environment where you feel comfortable to make mistakes as well. So obviously, everyone's learning, but and you will. It's just you come up and think of stuff which and get help from everyone else. So there's no you're not gonna get put down for if you put an idea out there, sort of thing, really.
Yeah, which I suppose is key to you feeling you're able to talk about ideas and share stuff without that fear. And then Jacques, in terms of obviously being one of the younger, young or rising stars of the Seven Towns scene, in terms of your day-to-day and approach to design, especially having worked at another toy company as well, how did Seven Towns complement your own approach and how you like to work? But also, was there something about being at a company that has this heritage? I'm always interested, does that feed in? Is that something that being in that building around people that have been there for a long time and with the company?
Definitely. I was very lucky when I joined Seven Towns that I was there when there was like John and Chris Brewer and Gary and Toby, they were all there. I think I was I was one of the first people to be employed for quite a while when I was hired. But I learned so much from them in such a small amount of time. And I think that's the same with the team now. We have a young team now, but what's really exciting about that is how quickly we learn. We learn really fast, and it drives everyone else. Like, it pushes the employees, each one of us, each employee is an inspiration to each other, really. It forces you to come up with and pushes you to come up with better stuff, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, just that environment, yeah, just constantly making you a better inventor and designer, really.
Absolutely. And I'm interested as well, the actual, we've heard a bit about the windows of the studio, but in terms of the actual office and the vibe and, and sort of just the working conditions, is there something about, when we speak to inventors, it's very important what their surroundings is like. Does that fit into it?
Yeah, well, again, we're given a lot of freedom. If we need something, we can get it. If you need something for an idea, we can go find it and source it and get that. We're given all the tools we need to do it. In regards to tech and anything we need, we've got a full workshop with all the machines, 3D printers we need. All the 3D printers we've got, we can print in rubber, all different kinds of materials to, get what's needed to get the idea made. And the speed that we can get stuff out is, it's amazing to be involved in that.
Yeah.
You can have an idea one day and it's made by the end of the day. Depends what the idea is, obviously, but it's amazing when you come in and you're in that environment. It's amazing. Yeah.
In the studio, which we've recently done up, we've just done some refurbishment, and we've got a lot of shelves up there. And I've recently been dragging out a lot of old products, old mechanisms, some things that sold, some things that didn't. In fact, a lot that didn't, but things that we're proud of, things that we're not, just interesting things. And we've put them all up on the shelves so that every day we can see them and remember them. And it's good for guidance and inspiration.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then in terms of, for the studio to have been around as long as it has, and the fact that the teams change and teams evolve and stuff like that, is there something that you think has been key to the fact that it's not the case that people look at Seven Towns and go, oh, they were great at this era? You guys have consistently been at the top of your game. So in terms of maintaining that and sort of carrying that, how does a studio do that for so long with so many different sort of people as well filtering through?
I think it's just constant evolving and using the skills that you have. Tom was explaining earlier how we've gone from having like huge mechanism, like heavy people, to sculptors, to 3D designers, and it's just utilizing those talents that you have and being flexible to embrace those. So our pitches might be really different to what they were 5 years ago because our team's different, but we just embrace those new skills and we roll with them, really. And I think that's the main thing to do, is not try and repeat what you've done previously. It's always to try and work with the new skills and work with what you have. And I think the team downstairs are amazing. I say downstairs because that's where the studio is and I'm based upstairs, sorry. But the studio team are amazing at that. They are phenomenal at rolling and adapting and learning new skills and learning new ways of doing things. We've just done a project where we had to learn basically from scratch how to 3D sculpt, which we'd not done before internally. And the guys who've been working on that are phenomenal 3D sculptors now. So it's that case of just embracing these skills and going with them. And I think that's our the way we keep relevant with stuff, is by doing that.
I think that's a very good example, actually. Although Seven Towns doesn't have a very high turnover of staff, we've traditionally had people staying for a very long time. Eventually, of course, people retire or move on for something new, as anywhere. And we've always been able to, although the work that we've done has necessarily changed, it's never changed for the worse. It's just shifted. When we've got brilliant sculptors, there seems to be more sculpting going on, more silicon molds or resin casting and whatever it was at the time. Then it's like nowadays we've got a younger staff who are very adaptable to modern sculpting methods and printing out in 3 dimensions via 3D printer. So yeah, we've just rolled with the changes and it's worked.
Absolutely. And on that, is there a product in recent years that you think actually that's a product that, you know, if we look at Seven Towns 10 years ago, as if we pick a time, that you think, well, that's an example of something we probably wouldn't have been able to come up with or wouldn't have created? Or is there any recent products you're allowed to talk about that you think?
I think there are lots. 10 years ago, the employees had been there for a very long time. Maybe we were getting slightly long in the tooth. There's no way that we would have done anything based on a TikTok trend or anything like that. Whereas now, I think that the younger age of the average age of our employees has meant that we're more in tune with the modern era.
Yeah.
A subtle way of putting it. Or despite the genius of the guys that went past, we've now shifted to something that's possibly more relevant to a new emerging generation.
There we go. So Jacques, are you resident TikTok expert? Are you there?
I'm definitely not, no. But there's people downstairs that are, Josh and Annabelle definitely are into that.
There's people dancing downstairs right now, just glued to it, just perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I'm interested as well, one thing we cover a lot of, you know, sometimes new studios starting up, sometimes it's just, you know, one or two people starting up, sometimes it's bigger. You know, in terms of advice for either new people looking to get into toy invention and toy design, or even people that are looking to go, you know, I'd love an agency that I can launch, and that, you know, the dream would be for it to still be around in 50 years, that sort of thing. Do you think there is a key to that sort of longevity and key to building an invention studio that does work for the long term?
Personally, I would say passion and playing to your strengths, playing to your skills. If you've got a great interest in, you know, I don't know, for instance, some kind of heavy rules board games, maybe that's the area that you should concentrate on initially, because that's what you're good at. Clearly, as Seven Towns shows, you can branch out at a later date, but in order to get yourself set up and running, whatever you're passionate about is probably a good thing to start concentrating on.
Yeah, amazing, great stuff.
Yeah, that passion to create as well, and just see that for any like new university student or something, just that passion to create new stuff and just see it. It's obviously it's a fast pace, but it's just, you know, you always want to find that next big thing, really, I think. Yeah.
And to add to that, you need a little bit of a thick skin.
Yes.
As in, there's a lot of no's for every yes, and they hurt everyone, you know. But if you are going to be an agency, or you're going to be a designer and you want to get into this industry, you do have to embrace those no's. Quite often they come with really great feedback as well, so you can go away and work on an item to change it and modify it, and perhaps it will sell that way. But yeah, some thick skin will really help you get through the industry a bit more.
Yeah, and maybe take your blinds down so you can spot any budding inventors or designers at the window. You know, one drawn blind, and Tom, you could be in a totally different, totally.
Indeed, my life would have been very different.
You're a whisker away. My last question is a silly one, but the name, I'm intrigued. You know, what are the Seven Towns? You know, what's the name about?
That goes back to an area of Transylvania. It's an area of Romania or Hungary on the border, I think. Transylvania, which is where Tom Kramer, his family, originated, and I believe there are 7 towns there, or were.
Okay,
that comes from.
There we go. Now we know. Thank you for that. Perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us today. Again, always a pleasure to catch up with you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully we'll all catch up in real life at some point very soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.